Alright boys and girls, it's time for something everyone on YouTube loves, and that is the desk tour. We'll do a quick pan here, and then we're going to jump right into it. Over on the left side of my desk, this is obviously the more modern side, which has my iMac. You'll see a dark microphone. That's the Blue Yeti Pro. I just recently picked that up. I'm actually doing the voiceover that you're listening to right now with that microphone. It has both USB audio out and XLR, stereo XLR at that. And I can hook it straight to my mixing board, or I can run it straight to the iMac via USB, which is what I'm doing right now. It has 4 different modes of operation, so it supports multiple uses, so you can use it in a variety of different ways. It has a heavy fitted base, and it's a nice piece of equipment. To the left of my iMac, you're going to see one of the studio monitors. This is the LSR 305 by JBL. It's a budget monitor, but it's highly rated, and it's extremely high quality for the money. I bought it from Sam Ash Audio along with my Elisa's mixing board for about $125 per studio monitor, which I got them to price match Amazon or B&H or one of those places. And right below them, you're going to see a couple curious foam pads. Those are actually made by a company called Auralex. It's the MoPADS. They're a pair of foam risers designed to isolate the speakers from your desk so you don't get all the rattles and stuff like that. It also helps enhance the bass. And they're slightly, if you notice, they're slightly at an angle. The foam pads have a 4-degree angle to them, so depending on how you use them, you can actually adjust the height on the monitor and the speaker. And on top here's a little curvy Amiibo. Sitting here in the center of my desk is my late 2012 27-inch iMac. I'm actually recording the audio from the Amiga demo you're seeing to the right over there on this machine. This is a late 2012, which has an i7 3770, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1 terabyte Fusion drive in it, which is a combination of a solid state and a spinning drive. I use an Apple keyboard and a Logitech mouse because Apple's mice, frankly, they're terrible. They work, but they're terrible. I also have a little iPhone 6 docking station. And right to the right of that little round thing is the charging station for my Apple Watch. That's right, I'm one of those pretentious pricks that have an Apple Watch. And I just had to have the display color match the band, because that's how I roll. And sitting just underneath the right side of my iMac is my Elisa's mixing board. That's not the most ideal spot for it, because the back of it's kind of covered by part of the bezel in the iMac, but unfortunately with the amount of desk space I have at the moment, with the kind of stuff I have piled on my desk, it's the best location for it. This is a Multimix 8 USB FX, runs around $150, $125, $150 like that. Has USB, bi-directional, it's nice. And over on the right of my desk, well towards the middle of the desk, right of my iMac, is my Amiga 1200. Which I've covered that somewhat in my last video, or well, a previous video when I dealt with Amiga Doom. But it's an 060 powered machine. And I'm obviously running it into a PC VGA CRT. It's a CPD E210 Sony Trinitron. It's a very high quality monitor. I'm very pleased with it. I've had a couple different CRTs, VGA CRTs, and to be honest, a lot of them are just worn out. This one's pretty good. To the right's my other matching 305 and a little minion standing on top. Stuart. Hello, Stuart. On my 1200, I'm using a Cocolino USB or PS2 mouse adapter, because pretty much all the standard Amiga mice from back in the day were garbage then, and they're sure as hell not any better now. Half of them don't even work. I'm running RGB SCART over to the right of my desk, which plugs into the XRGB, which is just sitting right to the right in the frame. There's my Amiga power supply and my XRGB 2. This one's been modified with EuroSCART input. Sitting on top of it is a couple little adapters, which I'll talk about shortly, from my Commodore 64. If you want a scaler and you don't have a problem being stuck with VGA as your output, XRGB2 is definitely the way to go. It's a very high quality scaler. My Amiga power supply is actually kind of a curious object. Originally came with one of my PAL machines, and of course obviously a 220 volt power supply that can't be switched to 110 isn't going to do me any good here in the States. So instead of buying a step up transformer, I actually replaced the circuit board inside. I used I think it was a Medical Aztec power supply, which provides me with all the necessary voltage for Amiga, and it's an auto switching power supply. So basically I just gutted the internals, replaced it with a modern 45 or 60 watt power supply, and we're good to go. And then this is a recent acquisition of mine, which is my Commodore 64. This is also a PAL machine, much like my Amiga 1200, my 600. I actually imported this from Germany. I just received this 2 weeks ago or so. And also in the back I just received this as well. That's a 1541 Ultimate. This is essentially a 1541 disk drive emulator, and it does a whole bunch of other stuff too, which I'll cover that in a future video. But this little guy is fabulous. On the left side it has an IEC connector. Basically that's your data connector that your old school 1541 disk drive plugged into. It has a little cable that plugs into that, goes around to the computer. And there's also a little stereo audio headphone jack. I believe that's for stereo SID sound chip emulation, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't really dived into it that deep yet. You can still play regular SIDs to this SID chip, and coming out your audio on your machine, it works fine. And that's a USB port, which is actually used for storage, or that little adapter set on top of the XRGB for a LAN port with a future upgrade. And there's a micro SD slot also used for storage. On the back of it, there's 3 buttons. The middle button, you press that and it brings up the main 1541 Ultimate screen where you can go through and select images, music, stuff like that. The right button is a reset button, and to the left, that button actually is used for, depending on how you have the cart programmed, you can load in different freezer carts or different fast loaders, and you press that button, it configures those. Another option I haven't really dived much into, but I plan to do that with a future video. I'd like to really jump into that and explore it a little more. Underneath my desk is a couple items. That power supply, that little black box is a power supply for my Commodore 64. I actually had a fellow, Ray Carlsen, built that. He builds these. He builds both Amiga and Commodore 64 128 power supplies. Commodore 64 is interesting because of the power supply. It uses both 5 volt DC and 9 volt AC, which is a hell of a hassle since you can't buy a single power supply which has that. So he builds custom power supplies with a 5 volt DC board and a 9 volt AC transformer. And it has also a Commodore protection circuit in it, which is designed so in case there's a failure, it doesn't sit there and basically smoke the Commodore 64, which is a common problem with the original Commodore power supplies go bad. It's a little saver in it designed to help keep the computer from biting the dust. Right behind it there is my charger for my DSLR battery. And to the right is my X68000 XVI, the 16 megahertz model. Currently it's not hooked up, which I know is a sad shame. It will be done in the game room since I have a dedicated Sharp Tri-Sync monitor for it. Well, I hope you liked the small tour of my desk. If you're wondering what's been running on the monitor, that's off of my Amiga 1200. That's the Jesus on Ease demo by LSD. It has approximately 25-30 minutes of music. This thing will go on and on and on. So I'm just going to go ahead and end the video with this, and hope you all have a great day.
G'day, Rolf here. I'm afraid the 2 little boys aren't home at the moment, but if you'd like to leave a brief message and your telephone number, they will get back to you as soon as possible.